concept. And my argument would be, I would prefer to look at it from the perspective of there really is not a concept of matrimonial property in Islamic law. And that's based on a case of 2019, according to one of our qadis who decided a matter and said, in Islam, this concept really doesn't really exist. In
matrimonial property?
Yes, it doesn't
exist. That
exist.
happens to the property that's acquired.
Right. So that it's not defined as matrimonial property. So what you would say is, for example, is, and this is Sharia based, right?
Okay.
And it's based on the maqasid, where we talk about the preservation of wealth, right?
Yeah.
I am far from a Sharia expert, and I would defer here to obviously the Qadi, learned Qadi, but I am a student of Sharia and have come across it a lot. And the maqasid is preservation of wealth. So one concept is we must always maintain the integrity of individual wealth. In Islam, women have wealth and men have wealth. And that is acquired differently and preserved differently within marriage and outside of marriage. And so I think I prefer to look at it from that perspective. Islam has a different take on what happens within marriage, outside of marriage, and what preservation of wealth means. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Just to hold your thoughts on that and get the feel of the same question that I asked Honorable Wakili here. Hakimu, maybe you tell us, what do you think from where you're coming from, being a Qadi yourself? And I don't know if you've interacted with such a case before. What do you think about this verdict?
Yeah, thank you first of all for hosting me. My take is on the judgment that was rendered by the Supreme Court is as follows. The first one is that it is never automatic in terms of the division of matrimonial property to be 50-50. Secondly, as well, the formula of distribution of matrimonial property is the contribution, either be it direct or indirect contribution, monetary or non-monetary contribution. The second aspect as well that I took home is that marriage per se is never a ground for division of matrimonial property. Like the ground of just saying, by virtue of being in marriage, then proving just marriage will automatically grant you right to a wealth that you have not amassed. That is the thing. Lastly, also the reflection that I'm getting from is that you see as a country, yes, we are allowed to practice our personal law, but at the same time, there is a supreme law. We are within the system of common law system, whereas the presidents of the higher courts will bind the lower courts. In this matter, that president will not bind our court in terms, the reason being that you see it was never litigation on Islamic law in terms of the rights to matrimonial property. It is purely different. Secondly, but it acts as a guidance to whatever that we are doing, and that as well it tells us something that from the judgment that it tends to give an interpretation to various sections of the Constitution, especially the clause on the equality, then that tend to tell us that yes, despite as Muslims applying our laws, then there is no way that we can apply the law that will contravene what they call the supreme law of the land. So to our extent, so it's more like we are trying to find our way in between applying Islamic law without the law being regarded as repugnant. Thank you.
Wakili raised a very pertinent issue here when talking about the whole definition of matrimonial property, and she mentioned a very important point that I'd like to hear your point, or rather your perspective on that, about matrimonial property. And she said that there is no such thing as matrimonial property, and that Islam clearly gives independence to each party to own their own property and not having more or less a joint property per se. What's your take on that?
If you'll allow me, I'll take a different route on the same. Especially, I'll tend to go to it through a comparative. Like the law that we are having here in Kenya, when it defines a matrimonial property, it talks of three things. Matrimonial home, it talks of the so-called household furnitures, it talks of any property, that is jointly acquired and owned by the parties during the subsistence of the marriage. So on the latter, the two of the first one, if I'll see it from the interpretation of now Islamic law, what is matrimonial property, is that it will not fall unless there is that aspect of contribution that will be so direct. Mm-hmm. Reason being that on the part of the matrimonial home, question is, unless there is that aspect of contribution that has been done that will turn the property into matrimonial property, it will not fall. The second aspect, on the furniture now, mm-hmm. I do believe that we, apart from being Muslim, we do have diverse sort of culture within the society. Like if you find yourself in coastal area, at times during the marriage you'll hear that the dowry is form of the furniture. Furniture, yeah. So you see, this will now take it away, mm-hmm. unless now there's also there is a contribution to it. Mm-hmm. Lastly, yes, Islamically, yes, you can say you won't find the word matrimonial property written anywhere. Mm-hmm. But the law books talks about sharika, issue of partnership in terms of
is that the common law or the Islamic law?
Islamic law. It doesn't talk about the concept of matrimonial property the way that we understand from the law itself, the Matrimonial Act. Okay. But it talks about, if we want to understand it very well Islamically, it talks about now the joint, in form of partnership, whatever that parties are acquired through joint acquisition mm-hmm. during the subsistence of the marriage. Mm-hmm. A good example being that, for example, I'm married, I have a family, then we start a business, for example, I contribute something 50%, 50%. That is what now the law of the country, on that the third part of it that we'll consider. But we won't find the concept matrimonial property the way it is understood and defined in our common law, in our Islamic law.
Thanks so much. Wakili, as I want to loop you in just to react to what the judge has said. From my research, I understand that both the Islamic and the customary law tend to borrow a lot from precedents from other countries as well, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just looking at one of the countries that I've seen a number of qadis have borrowed the precedents from, and that is Indonesia, right? And this is what it says. Indonesian law stipulates that all assets acquired during marriage become joint assets, except for gifts or inheritance, or unless otherwise specified. In the case of divorce, the joint assets will be divided equally between the two. So basically all the assets acquired become quote-unquote matrimonial property. Mm. That is from the Indonesian law.
So that's also Malaysian law. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I mean, we're still grappling with this concept within the system, but you see that creates a challenge, yeah, to a certain extent, because from an Islamic perspective, and I'll go back to the maqasid, which is preservation of wealth, you always have to go back to the idea of how was this property acquired and how did it get to where it was getting to, right? And that's why for me I say this concept of matrimonial property is some form of a construct, because essentially our marriages are a social contract, right? And you go into a marriage and the social responsibilities and responsibilities in Islam are quite clear. Right? A woman is entitled to her maher, for example, and that maher, like the learned Qadi pointed out, can be furniture in the house, right? While when you look at it from the perspective of the conventional perspective, mm-hmm. they would say that's part of the matrimonial property, and therefore upon division of the property you would do it half and half. That doesn't happen, right? So so in this context, when they talk about dividing the matrimonial property, mm-hmm. we are saying no, there is always an owner of the property, and that's why we're saying what was the contribution. Like in 2020, there was a case in the Qadi's court, it's HSB versus AAL, I believe, and what happened was the woman contributed to the property to the tune of over 2 million, right? But she was claiming a refund of 2 million. And the Qadi, what he did was he literally looked at the bank accounts, mm-hmm. the money coming in, everything happening, and literally the decision was, actually quite frankly, and this was Honorable Athman, who is based in Isiolo, he determined that she's entitled to a refund of 2 million based on the evidence of the contribution. He acknowledged that she had contributed 3.6 million, but she was only asking for 2 million, so obviously you get what you have prayed for.
Was it because of depreciation?
No, she just wanted 2 million. So he was like, okay, but you look like you've contributed more, but she just said, I just want my 2 million. So, I mean, at the end of the day, she's relinquishing her rights to the extra 1 million, but it's based on her prayers, because obviously the learned Qadi knows you can't give more than what somebody has prayed for, right? So that's what she asked. So there's this acknowledgement that, yes, there's going to be an objective analysis. How much did you contribute, right? And for me, then it just simply means that there is a man's property, there's a woman's property. How do you now make an objective analysis? And that's by contribution. And can you prove that contribution? And that's, I mean, that really is in line with our Islamic faith, which is essentially on Yawm al-Qiyamah, you'll say, I contributed to that property. Allah will ask you how. You know, how did you contribute to that property, right? And I mean, that's part of the conversation, which we really need to
There's a lot of questions, because from my understanding, in the corridors of justice, it's all about evidence, right? It's not about qila wa qala, he said, she said, I took, she took. So how then do you prove, for example, that I contributed this? If you're doing, let's say, an inventory, or you're doing, for example, an evaluation of the properties owned by both parties, then how then do you tell if you don't have a proof? Or I don't know, how do you arrive
I know what you're saying.
That,
I know what you're
right?
saying, and I'll give you an example. Women, for example, tend to be very trusting, right? And I, for example, can do a lot of shopping, can do many things for my spouse, and I don't document it, right? And that still contributes to the greater good of the family. And that's where the problem has always been. Is it the objective analysis of sense and calculations and everything, or are you going to consider, well, she did shopping, therefore released my income, and therefore he was able to pay the mortgage? This is what the learned Qadi is meant to do. He is meant to go through that analysis and be able to say, okay, I can't just look necessarily at the figures in the sense. If this woman is saying she did shopping, she spent everything, she paid part of the rent for him to get an investment property that they had agreed, the Qadi has to take on that responsibility of looking at that evidence, right? So it's a greater, it's really, it's a milliard. I feel so sorry for them. You know, honestly, they're struggling with this whole conversation, because, you know, they have a responsibility between the parties, but also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, He will ask them, you know, did you take into real consideration of what these parties are talking about?
How did you prove it? I mean, I'm just going to ask you to hold on that, because you need to pay our bills. There are some few advertisements that need to run on air. I mean, amazing legal brains inside the studio. It is mind-blowing. Wasela sema tunatolewa kutu kwenye sikio. Basically, we're being educated, we're being enlightened. So kindly keep it Horizon TV, keep it live, Real Talk, because we're going to be back in a moment.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
KIPS Technical College is one of the largest technical colleges established and mandated to operate by the TVET Authority. We are a leading institution offering high quality and accessible technical and professional training through a rich curriculum and a professional faculty. We offer diploma, certificate, and artisan courses in business management, journalism and media studies, community development, information and communication technology, hospitality and tourism. Our students enjoy a serene study environment with well-equipped laboratories and workshops. We offer full-time and evening classes, distance and e-learning. We have 6 campuses located within Nairobi, with Philadelphia campus at Philadelphia Building opposite Afya Center, Tomboya Street. Our January 2023 intake is ongoing. Apply now to get the best training. For more information, call 0721 134851 or visit our website at www.kips.ac.ke. KIPS Technical College, your sure path to success.
Are you looking for an excellent educational institution for your child? Blue Hills Academy is located in Nairobi, Ruai, along Nairobi Kangundo Road, 3.5 kilometers past Ruai Shopping Center and 500 meters off Kangundo Road, stage 26. We offer a wide range of academic and extracurricular activities to help your child reach their full potential. Our core curriculum includes pre-primary, primary, junior secondary school, and senior secondary for girls. We offer special subjects like French, German, Chinese, Islamic religious education, and Arabic. Admission for new learners are currently open, so do not miss this opportunity to give your child the best education possible. For more information, contact us on 0722 512532 or 0722 843391.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Assalamu alaikum, and thank you so much for keeping it live, Real Talk. Now, I don't know where you're from, I don't know what you do, I don't know who you're exposed to, I don't know how much you know. But let me tell you one of the things that I know. There is this community that has been forced to send out their young men and some women, but majorly men, to go out and fend for themselves. Sometimes they go to the Gulf, Africa, to the Gulf countries, and they would go and have, let's say, 2-year contracts with 30 days break. Most of the times, most of them, when they come during their leave days, the 30 days, they settle down. They get a spouse, they get somebody, they marry, and they leave them behind. After the 30 days has lapsed, go back to the Gulf to continue working. Just like any other Kenyan who wants to make it in life, wants to secure, quote unquote, the asset to have a comfortable life, he will look for a land somewhere, a parcel of land somewhere, and build a home for the family. Because he is away, the wife back at home is the one managing and actually running around to make sure that this building, that this house is come to fruition. Then, when it comes to, God forbid, divorce, and they really have to go separate ways, how do you go about that? Right? Talk of non-monetary contributions to enable the wealth to be created at the end of the day as a family. Abdul Jabbar, we've had that conversation in the first segment about matrimonial property and not maqasid al-sharia, about protecting property and all the stuff. So then, in the case of non-monetary contributions to the creation of that asset, how do you go about it?
First of all, I really wanted to bring it out, the aspect of equality, status in family. There are some rights which are equally enjoyed by both spouses in the marriage. The first being that the right to acquire property, to use property, and to hold, to administer as well. On this right, it is derived from the Holy Quran. لِلرِّجَالِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا تَرَكَ الْوَالِدَانِ. It goes وَلِلنِّسَاءِ نَصِيبٌ مِمَّا تَرَكَ. It talks about the right for them to acquire, both that equality which is out there. So the aspect of now we are talking about monetary, the issue which is black and white is direct contribution, the financial contribution. The one that still has some issues is when we talk about non-monetary contribution.
Yeah.
One of it is, like we talk of the domestic core, okay, management of matrimonial home. The second one being, for example, child care. The other one being an aspect to do with that you contribute to the running of the family business or farm work. You see, the latter two, it's so clear in terms of whatever that you are doing there. But the upper two ones, there's ikhtilaf among ulamas. On the domestic cause, school of thought, majority of them, they are saying that the domestic cause is never legally obligation upon a wife. Considering that a man supposed to, you are providing, you are doing A, B, C, D. But that part of cause is never. It's only dictated by what we call our social construct, our urf. And most of our laws, the sources of our laws in terms of the rights that flows from the marriage, the right and the duty that flows from the marriage, it is informed largely by what we call urf, the custom. So the other aspects now we talk about now, the child support. At what point we're talking about child support? Now the question is lactation, a mother who is lactating a child. It's clearly provided in Surah Talaq that yes, as a father you have to pay al-ujr for mama who is lactating the mother. So Jamhur ulama, majority of scholars.
Is there a set standard for that, or it's based on your capacity?
It's all, of course, it's based on capacity as informed by the ayah that follows, that you only provide according to your capacity. So here, those who are saying that even lactation, the mother need to be paid for doing that work. There's a school within that school which says, but when it comes to, they call it colostrum, the milk that during the first few days of giving birth. So a school says that, no, that one, a father will not pay anything because it is tied to the life of the child. What we are talking about, Maqazi Sharia, the life, preservation of life. Then we have another school of Malikiya. They're saying, no, if it's about care, even lactation, that one will not count as father to pay. Father is not under any obligation to pay. No compensation for mother. Reason being that even they are using the same the other verse of Holy Quran. The verse that talks about women, mothers, they have a duty to suckle their infants. So they are using as well the other. But all in all, so you see that is. So the main issue is now the quantification of what we call indirect contribution. How is it quantified? It can never be quantified like the one which we are saying that I contributed 20% of entire estate, for example, estate, wealth. Yeah, it is somehow hard. And the way we go for it, you see, is it all depends with the evidence that is presented before the court. At
the end of the day.
Yes.
So the burden falls on the wakilis.
Yes, on the party.
On the parties.
Of course,
claiming, the wakilis who are going to help the parties to come up with the cases and build the cases. And wakil, I just want to loop you in. Again, I read far and wide, both Commonwealth laws and those that are not Commonwealth laws. Again, a lot of materials that are found are coming from United States of America, Illinois, Chicago, and the likes. And there's this article done by Farouk and Husseini. This is a law firm that practices in the state of Chicago. And listen to this extract. They say, traditionally, Islamic law does not recognize the concept of marital wealth. Married spouses are not required to share their income and assets, but each spouse is entitled to ownership of assets they brought into the marriage. Because this separation of wealth, some husbands may claim that their wives are not entitled to share certain assets during divorce. However, Islamic law also states that wives are entitled to equitable, and that's the word, equitable divorce and compensation for their contribution to the marriage. How then do you build your case to ensure that your client gets the equity that he or she deserves? If, hypothetical, given a situation, how would you ensure the equity, right, is adhered to if you were presenting a party?
So it's an interesting concept because for me, I have chosen to diversify my manner of practice because of that very question that you're talking about, equity and how to achieve it. I personally don't believe, and with very full respect for the learned Qadi here, that I don't believe the manner in which the court system exists can create any kind of equity. I believe suhul under Islamic in Islamic law, which is mediation, is actually the only way that parties can get equity. And why I say this is because unfortunately, with the adversarial system, what happens is you throw mercy out the window. In the Quran, you're told to separate with each other in kindness and justly, right? When you go through the adversarial system, and I know the learned Qadi will agree with me, the result is acrimony all the time, because they pitted against each other. So what happens is, what grows out the way is equity. That's the first thing that's thrown out when it comes to going to court.
And greed
right?
comes in.
Right, greed, but also, how dare you say that about me? Okay, watch what I say here. And inevitably, that results in lies, you know, mistruths and mistrust. And so even if the man or the woman had any grace or mercy to give to the other party, that's thrown out the window, all right? Because this now means war, right? That's literally what happens when you
Guns
walk into a
blazing.
court, 100%. You've hired a gladiator, she's hired a gladiator, and you're at it, and then our learned Qadi here is like trying to figure out what's going on. And really, at the end of the day, what the first thing that goes out the window is equity and justice and fairness, because that's not what our system is created to do. And so that's why I feel that what you're talking about, this unconsidered, uncalculable, non-monetary contributions will never be able to get a proper conversation. If I speak to somebody who still has an ounce of mercy on me and say, listen, you remember how our child was sick and I took care of this child, and you went, you know, to Dubai, you took care of the child, I was here, the child was sick, what do you think I should get? What do you think is fair? That's a totally different mindset than somebody, we're all fighting here, and then you're like, I'm entitled to this. As who? There's posturing, there's aggression, there's violence. And it's just, for me, honestly, you will never, and I'll repeat, you will never get equity, you'll never get justice, and you'll never get level-headedness when we are pitted against each other in an adversarial system. Personally, I will never advocate. I try my level best to remove these aggressions from the court system. Because, as you rightly say, how does he calculate that? How is it even possible? It isn't. We're asking him to do an impossible job, right?
Wow.
Because you can't, right? And that's why nobody's ever come up with a formula.
And he's itching to say something. Hakim, yes.
In terms of equity, we have a lot of equity under Islamic law. We have a concept that is never there in any other law. We call it mata, consolatory gift. Even if you appear before the court and you don't have anything to say, and matter is before the court for divorce, still our sisters, ladies, they can still ask the court for the orders of mata, which is, we call it a gift that can be given. And the gift, whatever that is guiding now the calculation of that gift, is also, we take into account the life that you had, circumstance. You see case by case circumstance, and also the wealth, this financial muscle of the other party. The other thing as well, yes, we know as-sulh khair.
Yes.
Sulh is best.
At the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
True.
But you see, there are some sulh which is contrary even to the legal principle. A lot of compromise that even goes contrary to the roots of Islamic, the root of justice. And yes, and we do believe that one thing, there is this big maxim that it normally comes out of our face whenever we are entertaining matters of novelty, that when you talk about, we take a refuge to the qawl of Ibn al-Qayyim. Yes, where he says, anything that leads to justice is part of religion. So anything that leads to justice is part of religion. Yes, we know, coming to court is not an easy thing. People will fight there. It will create a rift between the family. Sulh is best, but at times some sulh is never a solution.
What do you mean? How does sulh not become a solution?
I can see what he's saying. And when I'm trained as a mediator, there's some contexts where you're told it's not possible because of the balance of power. Right? And a classic example is where there's been domestic violence, right? Where a person has learnt acquiescing, meaning because of long time acquiescing and agreeing so that this person doesn't get aggressive, they, like he rightly says, they pull back and they give away their haqq, right? There are definitely contexts where even me as a mediator, I cannot bridge, because this person will just be saying, okay, okay, and that's
Really?
taking advantage, complete advantage, to the extent that it's no longer equitable and just. I 100% agree. There are some contexts, but for me, like I said, it's about training. I'll be very honest. Unfortunately, a lot of mediators don't have training. A lot of people who engage in, so don't really have proper training. Not anybody can engage in it. You literally have to have the capacity, and it is absolutely a science. And it's something that you learn, and there's skills and capacity. So yes, it can go absolutely wrong. But I think at the end of the day, the acrimony I've observed over the 22 years I've been in practice does not honestly equate to justice. And that's really been my experience.
In that case, then, I mean, you've come out outrightly and actually promote sulh at the end of the day, mediation, to be one of the ways to get justice. I don't know, Jabbar, what's your take on that? I mean, because you talk about division of matrimonial property ultimately, because divorce is a reality that you have to live with, right? So in the event that you're faced with this situation that, khalas, we didn't want it, but it's here with us right now, right? The Supreme Court has pronounced itself, and I'm sure that's going to be used as a precedent in many other cases that will follow, even those that are continuing right now. But in Islamic law right now, I'm sure some legal brains will bring up this matter, right, and bring up these precedents. But again, you as a judge, I don't know if it's going to be conflicting, but from your own experience and you as a person, what would you prefer? Like, what would you propose as a best way forward to try and address this situation that we're having right now?
Yeah, my take is, you see, we need first of all to use our members, educating people on social norms, importance of family. It is rare to find a mosque during Friday giving khutbah on issues to do with family, social issue. Okay, we need to educate masses on their rights. As well, we need to activate also the ulamas around, in terms of we need people to be trained, even ulamas to be trained on mediation. And also, as a court as well, we need also to be proactive in terms of sending matters for mediation and encouraging parties to agree. Reason being that, you see, parties, they know what is best for them than the court. When you're appearing before the court, okay, at the end of the day, we'll have a winner. But it's more like gambling. Yeah, even the Rasul sallallahu alayhi stated, "Nahnu nahkum bid-dawahir wallahi ta'ala sarair." A judgment that we give is a judgment that what we see, evidence presented before the court. But something beyond what we cannot see, because we are never angel, it can never come to our. So the issue is about society, first of all, they need empowerment. Our sheikhs also, they need empowerment in terms of knowing to have that know-how of mediation. And also the court to be proactive in terms of be sending back matters. Like within the court now, we have a registry that deals with mediation. That matters people need to be referred to
within the court system.
Within the court system,
as
yes.
ADR, as an arm of ADR, the alternative dispute resolution.
Yes.
Or you deal with people who are practicing privately?
They deal with people practicing privately, but now it's a link between the people and the court. So we have it. So our colleagues, even I'm telling them, who are practicing in courts, always to be telling people to do it. And as well, it has some benefit as well on our end in terms of our performance. We do sign performance agreement every year, and among the indicators is percentage of the matters that you have referred to ADR. Yes, because you see, this is a society. We give a judgment, but we need to think of the impact of that judgment within the society that we're living in. Not just, I'm just giving divorce, I go. We need to think about it. But we normally try to an extent that you see the report comes out that there is a reconcilable difference. Nothing can be done. Even we give a month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, that the matter today, and we want you guys to go and agree on something, try something. Have you found ABCD? Then you'll find at the long run, now they don't have anywhere to go, they'll come to court. So we cannot now down our tools.
Now you have to take it up.
Yes, now we have to take it up and proceed. But it's a call to all that we need at least proactivity.
Yeah, and I can take that as a parting shot.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
I think, yeah, so I think for me, you know, the Learned Qadi said something very important, which is the issue of educating people and their rights, right? I think one of the major conversations that women and men need to understand is really we need to go back to learning our deen. Because the challenge that we're facing, and especially as lawyers, when I deal with a lot of women and sometimes men, they come to me and they're like, but, you know, I was contributing, I was giving money, I was doing this with my relationship. And, you know, one of the questions I ask is, but do you know in Sharia that you're not meant to do that? You know, that is not your responsibility. As a woman, your husband should be supporting you. Now, he should support you to the extent that you can go to the Ritz and you should have a Dubai holiday every single month. No, you should go according to his means.
Furniture almost
well,
every
absolutely. But in terms of responsibility, that is responsibility, right? If you give him money, that's a sadaqah. That's number one. And number two, if you give him money, you should actually put it down.
Yeah.
That's something that you should be able to write down. And it's not an anticipation of a divorce, but understand that marriage in Islam is a social contract. It's not a happily ever after, holding hands, kumbaya, we'll be married forever. That's Disney madness. Islam is a very different, realistic engagement that you're getting into. And so it's important that, like, you know, the Qadi said, the people in the minbar should be talking about this. The imams should be talking about this. They should be educating the ummah about their rights and responsibilities. And a lot of that will dissipate a lot of problems. But right now we're sitting in a lot of ignorance and people don't know their rights, they don't know their responsibilities. And so all these issues of contribution, lack of contribution, it all gets mixed up in the pot.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Is there something that I'm getting from this show tonight? Is that at the end of the day, information is power. And remember that the first verse to be revealed unto the Prophet, peace be upon him, was Iqra, was read. And Islam is not a religion for lazy people. Myself, I've learned a lot, even when I was just researching about this topic. When I was reading, there are a lot of material to read about this topic, if you have an open mind. The moment you're fixated and you have to go and you want to go there to learn something new, I mean, you'll always put that information against the backdrop of what you already know. And that's not a good character when seeking knowledge outside there. So, to our beloved viewers, thank you so much for keeping it live, Real Talk. But more than anything, guys, let's read, read, read. And those who know, the Prophet said, بَلِّغُ أَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Right? Convey unto me, even if it is just one verse. So that knowledge that you don't want to share, remember Allah is going to ask you about it. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Asante Nisana for making time for us. Thank you so much to everybody who made this possible, from my floor manager right here in the studio, Nasir Hassan, and my producer, Abba Shihemi, and the whole crew, Isam Tama, Muhammad Gitonga, Ibrahim Muhammad, who made this possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Until next week, same place, same time. My name is Faisal Kassim. See you.
Horizon TV, the beacon for the nation.
Women are phenomenal.
Whatever you give them, they produce a refined, better version.
The last 3 years have been financially difficult on everyone.
2023 is likely not to be any easier. What will you do about it?
I will be attending the 2nd annual financial conference hosted by Halal Eventbrite.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2nd annual financial conference. My name is Faisal Kassim.
And my name is Aisha Ahmed.
Tighten your belts and be ready to be mind blown by amazing topics and speakers we have lined up for you.